The sun rose gently over the small African town of Oguta, painting the rooftops with gold and filling the air with the sounds of life. The town's heart beat strongest in its market, a maze of wooden stalls, colorful fabrics, and voices calling out prices. Among the noise and laughter, Amara stood quietly behind her fruit stall, arranging ripe mangoes in neat rows. To the strangers who passed by, Amara looked like any other young woman, calm, polite, and hard-working. But those who truly knew her could see it in her eyes, a quiet sadness, like a wound that never healed. Amara lived with her grandmother, Mama Binta, in a small clay house at the edge of town. The walls were old, but they carried warmth, the smell of burning firewood, the sound of evening prayers, and the laughter of two women trying to fill a silence that had lasted for years. Her mother, Aisha, had vanished when Amara was just a child. No one spoke about it openly. Whenever Amara tried to ask, Mama Binta would sigh and say, "Some stories are better left to the wind." Still, every time Amara walked through the market, she felt eyes on her. Old women would lower their voices. Men would nod politely, but step aside, whispering behind her back. It was as if her mother's name still floated in the air, heavy, unspoken, and cursed. But Amara refused to be broken. Each morning, she cleaned her stall, polished her weighing scale, and greeted her customers with a warm smile. She loved her work. The rhythm of selling fruits, the laughter of children running through the aisles, the smell of roasted corn in the air. She had a dream, to one day open her own grocery shop. Not just a small one, but a real store, painted yellow with her name written in bold letters, Amara's Fresh Fruits and Foods. It was her way of chasing hope, of building something her mother never got to see. That evening, as the sun slipped behind the hills, Amara walked home carrying a small basket of leftover fruits. Mama Binta sat outside, her frail hands weaving palm leaves together. Her face was wrinkled with time and secrets, but her voice was gentle. "You look tired, my child," she said softly. "Just a long day," Amara smiled, placing the fruits beside her. "But I sold almost everything." Mama Binta nodded, but didn't respond. She stared into the fading sky as if searching for something long lost. The silence between them felt familiar, comfortable but heavy. After dinner, the two women prayed together, then lay down to rest. The night air was cool, carrying the hum of distant drums from a nearby village. Amara closed her eyes, drifting into sleep, her thoughts filled with tomorrow's work. But in the quiet darkness, she woke to a sound, a faint whisper. At first, she thought it was the wind. Then she heard it again, a trembling voice from the next room. She crept closer and saw her grandmother tossing in her sleep, sweat glistening on her forehead. Her lips moved restlessly, whispering a name. "Aisha, Aisha, forgive us." Amara froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't heard that name spoken in years. Not in this house. "Mama," she whispered, stepping closer. Mama Binta didn't wake. Her breathing grew heavier, her voice breaking as she repeated the same words. "Forgive us." Amara stood there in silence, watching her grandmother's face twist in pain, her hands clutching the blanket tightly. The shadows on the wall danced like restless spirits. Something inside Amara shifted. The air felt colder. For the first time, she realized that her grandmother's silence wasn't just grief. It was fear. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring out at the moonlit market in the distance, its empty stalls standing like ghosts. Her heart whispered a question she had buried for too long. What really happened to my mother? And though no answer came, deep down, Amara knew. The silence around her was about to break. The morning sun rose slow and pale over Oguta. But something felt wrong. The usual laughter and chatter of the market were missing. The air carried a strange heaviness, like a storm that hadn't yet arrived. As Amara stepped onto the dusty path leading to the market, she noticed small groups of people whispering. Vendors who normally shouted prices now spoke in hushed voices. Eyes turned toward her, then quickly away. Her heart tightened. She quickened her pace, clutching her basket. When she reached her fruit stall, she froze. There, on the old wooden table where she usually set her mangoes and oranges, was a dark red stain. It stretched across the surface, thick and uneven, like something dragged by a trembling hand. And written in the middle of it, in bold letters that made her blood run cold, was a name. Aisha, her mother's name. The world around her fell silent. Her breath caught in her throat. The crowd pressed closer, murmuring in fear. One woman covered her mouth and whispered, "That's her mother's name, the one who disappeared." Another man muttered, "This is bad. Blood in the market means trouble." Some said it was witchcraft. Others called it a curse. Children were pulled away, and stalls began to close. Amara's legs felt weak. Her hands trembled as she stepped closer. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing the dried red surface. It was rough, sticky, real. Memories flashed in her mind, her mother's laughter, her gentle hands, the way she used to braid her hair before vanishing into the night years ago. Her heart pounded as her eyes blurred with tears. Why now? Why here? She whispered to herself. Someone called for the police. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived, pushing through the crowd. One of them took out a notebook. The other glanced lazily at the stain. "It's just paint," one officer said, sniffing dismissively. "Someone trying to scare people." "But it's my mother's name," Amara said, her voice shaking. "She disappeared here years ago." The officer looked at her, then shrugged. "Coincidence, maybe. Clean it off and carry on. We don't need panic in the market." They walked away before she could say another word. The crowd began to scatter, but the fear stayed. Even as people reopened their stalls, eyes followed her, wary, uncertain, afraid. By the time she returned home that afternoon, her head throbbed. Mama Binta sat outside, folding laundry in the warm sunlight. She looked up and smiled faintly. But when she saw Amara's pale face, her hands froze. "Child, what's wrong?" Amara could barely speak. "Mama, at the market. Someone wrote a name in blood." Mama Binta frowned. "A name?" Amara swallowed hard. "Your daughter's name." Aisha. The basket fell from her grandmother's hands. Fruits rolled across the dirt as Mama Binta's face drained of color. Her lips trembled. "No," she whispered, backing away. "No, no, that cannot be. Mama!" Before Amara could reach her, Mama Binta collapsed. Amara screamed and rushed forward, shaking her gently. Neighbors ran from nearby houses, helping her carry the old woman inside. Someone brought water. Another fanned her with a piece of cardboard. After several tense moments, Mama Binta opened her eyes, confused, sweating, and terrified. "I don't want to talk about it," she murmured weakly. "Don't ask me, Amara. Please." Amara knelt beside her, gripping her hand. "But Mama!" "No, she said sharply, her voice breaking. Some things are buried for a reason. Leave it alone. That night, the house felt colder than usual. The lamps flickered. Amara sat alone in her room, staring at the small photo of her mother on the wall. Her mind was restless, filled with questions that no one wanted to answer. She couldn't sleep. Something deep inside told her that the writing wasn't just a prank. It was a message. She walked to her grandmother's room. Mama Binta was asleep again, breathing heavily. The moonlight crept through the window, falling on the old mirror near the bed. Something glimmered behind the frame. Curious, Amara reached for it and pulled the mirror slightly away from the wall. A folded photograph slipped out. Old, torn at the edges. It was her mother, younger, smiling brightly. But on the back of the photo, someone had drawn strange symbols, circles, lines, and a mark that looked eerily like a drop of blood. Amara's hands trembled. Her pulse quickened. She looked toward her grandmother, who mumbled in her sleep. Aisha, don't come back. Please. Amara stared at the photo in silence, her mind spinning. Something was happening. Something that had begun long before she was born. And she knew, with a chilling certainty, that her mother's story wasn't over yet. The next few days in Oguta were filled with whispers. The red writing on Amara's stall had been washed away, but people still looked at her as if she carried a shadow. Some avoided her stall completely. Others came only to stare, pretending to buy fruit while their eyes searched her face, like they expected her mother's ghost to appear beside her. Amara tried to ignore them, but inside she was breaking. Every night, she stared at the old photograph she'd found, her mother's bright smile on one side, strange red symbols on the other. What did they mean? Why had Mama Binta hidden it? That evening, she decided she couldn't stay silent anymore. Mama, she began softly as they ate their evening meal, you know something about the blood writing. Please, tell me the truth. Mama Binta's spoon froze midway to her mouth. Amara, I told you already. Some things must stay buried. But it was written in blood. My mother's name. Don't you see? Someone's trying to tell us something. Amara leaned closer. What things? Mama Binta shook her head. I warned her to stay quiet. Everyone did. But she said the truth needed to come out. Her voice broke. The night she disappeared, she went to the market to meet someone. She said she finally had proof. She never came home. Amara's breath caught. Proof of what? Before Mama Binta could answer, a knock echoed at the door. It was a young man holding a small notebook and a recorder. His clothes were dusty and his eyes sharp with curiosity. Sorry to disturb, he said politely. My name is Tunde. I'm a journalist. I've been investigating strange events in this region, including the blood writing at the market. Mama Binta tensed. We don't talk about such things here. But Amara's curiosity sparked. Please, come in, she said, motioning him to sit. Tunde opened his notebook. I've been following cases like this for months. Marks written in blood, missing women, old rituals connected to the market. Every time, the police dismiss it as superstition. But the pattern is real. Amara's heart pounded. You think my mother's disappearance is part of this? Tunde nodded slowly. I believe so. I found an old report. Your mother's name was mentioned in it. She tried to expose a group that used the market as cover for their rituals. Some of the most respected men in this town were involved. Mama Binta gasped and gripped her chair tightly. Stop! Don't bring those names into this house! But Tunde continued. This isn't the first time a message was written in blood. It's happened before, years ago, always after someone tried to tell the truth. Amara's voice trembled. So the writing wasn't just a threat. It was a warning, Tunde nodded. Or maybe a cry for justice. The room fell silent. The only sound was the wind rattling the old wooden windows. Amara's mind swirled with confusion. She could almost see her mother's face, her smile, her voice echoing in her mind. "Be brave, my little one." Mama Binta wiped her eyes, whispering, "Your mother wanted to protect you. She told me that night, if anything happens to her, keep you away from the market. I failed her." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. "You didn't fail her, Mama. Someone else did. And I'll find out who." Tunda leaned forward. "If you're serious about this, I'll help you. But it won't be easy. People will try to silence you, just like they silenced your mother." Amara took a deep breath. "Then let them try." The next morning, she and Tunde went back to the market. The air felt different, tense, watchful. They moved quietly, speaking to vendors, listening to old stories. Some shook their heads, warning her to leave it alone. One elderly woman finally whispered, "Child, you dig too deep. Your mother was brave, but bravery can be dangerous in this town." "What happened to her?" Amara pleaded. The old woman looked around nervously, then whispered, "She saw the chief's secret. The one who runs this market. He's not just a man of trade. He deals in things darker than money." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Your mother tried to stop him, and for that, she was taken." Amara felt her knees weaken. She gripped the table beside her for support. Tunde wrote everything down, his face set with determination. "We're getting close," he said. Amara stared out across the busy market, the same place where her mother's name had been written in blood. The same place where laughter and death lived side by side. As she watched the chief walk by, his gold rings flashing under the sun, a chill ran through her body. Now she understood. The truth her mother had died for was still buried here, and she was going to dig it up, no matter what it cost. That night, the rain fell hard, a restless storm that seemed to echo the chaos in Amara's heart. The wind howled through the cracks of her small room, carrying faint whispers that sounded almost like her mother's voice. She turned in bed, her body shivering though the air was warm. In her mind replayed the words of the old woman at the market. She saw the chief's secret. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the door. Amara sat up, startled. "Who's there?" she called out, but no one answered. The knocking continued, slow and deliberate. When she finally opened the door, no one was there, only muddy footprints leading toward the old mango tree near her window. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, she saw a faint outline under the tree, a woman in white, her dress torn, her face shadowed, her eyes glistening like wet glass. Amara froze. "Mama," she whispered. The figure tilted its head, as if listening. Then, in the next flash of lightning, it was gone. The next morning, Amara went straight to Mama Binta, her hands trembling. "I saw her," she said. "I saw my mother last night." The old woman's eyes widened in fear. "Don't say such things. The dead should rest." "But she's not resting," Amara said firmly. "She's trying to tell me something." Mama Binta held her arm tightly. "Amara, your mother's spirit has been restless for years. The night she vanished, the sky was just like this, full of thunder and warnings. If she's coming back now, it means danger is near." That afternoon, Amara met Tunde again at a small cafe near the river. He noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "You didn't sleep," he said. "She came to me," Amara whispered. "My mother's spirit. I saw her outside my house." Tunde hesitated, then leaned closer. "Maybe it's not a ghost. Maybe someone's trying to scare you, to stop you from asking questions." Amara shook her head. "No, Tunde, I felt her presence. I could smell her perfume, the same one she wore when I was a child. She was trying to warn me." He sighed. "Then we need to move faster." Together, they went to the local archive. a dusty, forgotten room behind the old council building. Inside were faded records, yellowed newspapers, and police reports that hadn't seen light in years. Hours passed as they searched, page after page, until Amara found a document marked confidential. It was dated the same week her mother disappeared. Her eyes widened as she read the name at the top, Chief Okoro. The report mentioned ritual practices, missing vendors, and evidence destroyed. At the bottom, written in red ink, were the words, "Case closed by order of Chief Okoro." Amara's hands trembled. He covered it up. Tunda nodded grimly. "And your mother must have found this. That's why she went to the market that night." Just then, the air in the room grew cold. The flickering lantern dimmed. "Did you feel that?" Tunde asked quietly. Before Amara could respond, a file cabinet rattled violently. Papers flew into the air, scattering across the floor. And faintly, they both heard it, a woman's voice whispering, "Find me." Tunda froze. "Amara, tell me that was the wind." But Amara's eyes filled with tears. "It's her. She's here." They followed the voice to the far corner of the room where a hidden trap door lay covered in dust. Tunde pulled it open. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. He turned on his flashlight, revealing a small underground room filled with old photos, broken pottery, and burnt candles. In the center, carved into the dirt wall, was the same symbol Amara had seen on the back of her mother's photo, drawn again in faded blood. Mara's knees buckled. This is where they brought her. Tunda looked around. "We need to get out of here. If anyone finds us." Before he could finish, a loud thud echoed from above. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. They froze. Amara whispered, "They know we're here." Tunda turned off the flashlight. The footsteps grew closer, then stopped right above the trapdoor. For a long, breathless moment, the only sound was the pounding of their hearts. Then, suddenly, silence. When they finally climbed out, the archive room was empty, except for one thing, the photo of Amara's mother, now lying on the table. It hadn't been there before. Across her mother's smiling face, new words were written in blood. "He remembers you," Amara screamed, dropping the photo. Tunde grabbed her arm. "We have to leave. Now." They ran through the rain-soaked streets, hearts racing. As the echoes of her mother's voice followed behind them, soft, mournful, and full of pain. When they finally reached Mama Binta's house, Amara collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. "What did you find?" Mama Binta asked in horror. Amara looked up, her voice shaking. "The truth isn't buried, Mama. It's waiting. And now, it wants justice." Lightning flashed again outside the window. And in its light, they saw her mother's reflection in the glass. Watching, waiting. The next morning, the sun rose red, a strange, heavy color that painted the streets of Oguta like fire. The market was quieter than usual. People whispered as Amara walked through, their eyes following her every step. The blood-written words, "He remembers you," still echoed in her mind. Whoever he was, she knew the answer now. Chief Okoro. He was the man everyone respected, the one who built the new market, who gave food to widows and sponsored children's schooling. But behind his generosity, Amara now saw something darker, a shadow that had swallowed her mother's light years ago. Tunde met her near the old shrine at the edge of town. "You're sure you want to do this?" he asked, concern flickering in his voice. Amara nodded. "It's time." They waited until afternoon, when the chief usually came to the market to inspect the stalls. The crowd parted as he arrived. Tall, broad, his robes gleaming white, gold chains heavy around his neck. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Amara stepped forward. "Chief Okoro," she called out. He turned slowly. "Ah, the fruit seller. You've been causing quite a stir, haven't you?" Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "You knew my mother. 10 years ago," he raised a brow, "I knew many women in this town." "You killed her," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "You and your men. She tried to expose what you were doing here. The rituals, the disappearances. You silenced her." The market went still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The chief chuckled softly. "You have a wild imagination, girl. Careful. Words like that can cost you your life." Tunde stepped forward, holding up the confidential report they'd found. "We have evidence, Chief. Documents, testimonies, proof that you ordered her case to be closed. You can't hide this anymore." For a moment, something flickered in the chief's eyes. Not fear, but fury. He leaned closer, his voice low. "Do you think anyone will believe a poor fruit seller and a journalist from the city? I own this town. Every word spoken here bends to me." Amara stared at him, her eyes blazing. "Not anymore." Just then, the sky darkened. The wind picked up, swirling dust around them. Thunder rolled in the distance. The chief frowned, glancing up at the sky. "What trick is this?" Amara took a deep breath, her voice rising over the storm. "Mama, if you can hear me, it's time." The ground trembled. People gasped as the market lights flickered and a chilling wind swept through the stalls. From the shadows near the old well, a faint glow appeared. A soft, bluish light that took the shape of a woman. Her white dress fluttered as though under water. Her eyes glowed with sorrow and strength. It was Amara's mother. The chief stumbled back, his face pale. "No, no, you're dead." The ghost stepped closer, her voice echoing through the market. "You thought death would silence me, Okoro, but truth cannot be buried." People screamed and fell to their knees. Some ran, but most stayed, frozen by fear and awe. Amara's tears streamed freely as she whispered, "Mama." The spirit turned to her, her face softening. "My child, you've done what I could not. You faced the darkness without fear." Then her gaze hardened as she turned back to the chief. "You took my life, my voice, my peace. But now everyone shall see who you truly are." The chief shouted, "Enough! You think anyone will believe a ghost." But suddenly, his own men began to back away, whispering and crossing themselves. The truth was already unraveling. The spirit raised her hand, and the air grew thick with energy. The market walls echoed with ghostly wails, voices of other women, long gone, calling for justice. The chief dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. "Stop it! Please! I'll confess! Just make it stop!" Tunde's recorder captured every word. "I killed her," the chief screamed. "She found the list, the names of the women we used for the ritual. She threatened to tell the world. I had to." Before he could finish, the wind howled, and the spirit of Amara's mother stepped forward, her eyes shining with tears. "You didn't have to destroy what was good in you, but you chose darkness. And now, it will claim you." With a final flash of lightning, the chief collapsed, the ground trembling beneath him. His gold chains snapped, scattering into the mud. The storm began to ease. The crowd stared in stunned silence. Slowly, Amara walked to her mother's spirit. The ghost smiled faintly. Now my soul can rest. You gave me justice, my child. Amara sobbed. Don't leave me again. Her mother's voice grew soft. I never truly left. Every time you stood for truth, every time you faced fear, I was there. The spirit lifted her hand, touching Amara's face gently. A warm light filled the air, wrapping Amara in peace. And then, the ghost faded into the wind. The next day, the market was different. The fear that had once hung over Oguta was gone. People spoke her mother's name again, not in whispers, but in gratitude. Chief Okoro's crimes became public. Tunde's recordings spread across the Yu region, and for the first time, the women who had been silenced were remembered. Mama Binta wept when she heard the news. Your mother's spirit can finally rest, she said, holding Amara close. You've done what none of us could. Amara smiled faintly. She was never truly gone. She just needed someone to finish her story. As days turned into weeks, the market began to bloom again. Amara rebuilt her stall, brighter, larger, full of colors. She hung her mother's photo at the center, framed with flowers. Every evening, as the sun set, a soft breeze would pass through the market, and the scent of her mother's favorite perfume would fill the air. A reminder that love, once born, never truly dies. Tunde returned to the city, promising to publish the full story. Before he left, he said, Your mother gave you courage. Now, you've given her justice. Don't ever stop telling stories that matter. Amara smiled. I won't. Her voice lives through mine now. That night, as the market lights flickered under the stars, Amara whispered to the wind, Thank you, Mama. And in the hush that followed, a soft voice answered, gentle and proud, I'm always with you. The sun rose gently over Oguta, painting the sky in shades of gold and soft pink. The market that once echoed with fear now buzzed again, but this time with laughter, chatter, and the smell of roasted maize. At the entrance stood a brand-new sign, freshly painted in bold red and gold letters, Asia Market, in memory of a woman who spoke the truth. Amara stood before it, her heart swelling with pride and grief all at once. The wind brushed her hair, as if her mother's unseen hand was caressing her cheek. Her new grocery stall gleamed beneath a blue awning, baskets of fruits and vegetables, neatly arranged, the colors vibrant under the morning sun. Above the counter hung a framed photograph of her mother, Aisha, smiling. The same warm, fearless smile Amara had inherited. Customers greeted her with respect now. Morning, Amara. Your mother would be proud. Each word carried healing, slowly stitching together the parts of her that had been broken. Mama Binta sat nearby, wrapped in her favorite shawl. Her face looked older, softer, her eyes tired, but peaceful. She smiled faintly as she watched Amara arrange her fruits. See this market, child, she whispered. It once hid shadows, but now it shines with truth. Amara knelt beside her. You helped me get here, Mama. Without you, I wouldn't have known where to begin. Mama Binta shook her head. No, my child. You had your mother's courage all along. I only held you until you were ready to stand. For the first time in years, they spoke freely about Aisha. Her strength, her laughter, her bravery. The silence that had once haunted their home was gone. Tunde arrived later that day, his camera hanging around his neck. Amara, he said, smiling, the story's out. People across the region are reading about Aisha's courage. They're calling her the woman who spoke for the silent. Tears filled Amara's eyes. She finally got her voice back. "And so did you," Tunde replied. "Your mother fought for truth, but you made sure it lived." He handed her a newspaper. On the front page was her mother's picture, beside the headline, "Justice After a Decade. The Market of Blood Finds Redemption." As Amara read, her hands trembled, not with fear this time, but gratitude. The ghosts of her past no longer scared her. They had become part of her story. By evening, the market was filled with children's laughter. Women sang as they packed their goods, their voices rising like a hymn. For the first time in many years, Oguta felt alive, not in denial, but in truth. Mama Binta sat, watching the sunset. "Amara," she said softly, "when I am gone, promise me you'll keep telling her story. Promise you'll never let silence win again." Amara took her grandmother's hand. "I promise. Her truth will live through me, and through every woman who dares to speak." Mama Binta smiled weakly, her eyes glistening. "Then my heart can rest." Weeks passed. One morning, Amara found Mama Binta asleep in her chair, her face peaceful, her hands folded around her prayer beads. She had drifted quietly into eternity. The grief hit hard, but beneath it was peace. Amara buried her grandmother beside her mother, under the old baobab tree outside town. She placed fresh lilies there every week, whispering prayers of thanks and forgiveness. Time moved forward. The town healed. The shadows of fear that once ruled the market were replaced by stories of strength. Young women came to Amara for advice. Old men nodded respectfully when she passed. Tunde's article became a documentary. Schools told the story of Aisha and her daughter, a tale of courage that changed an entire town. One night, long after everyone had gone home, Amara sat alone at her stall, watching the stars. The night breeze carried the scent of her mother's favorite jasmine flowers. She closed her eyes. "Mama," she whispered, "we did it." And, for a brief, beautiful moment, she felt a warmth wrap around her shoulders. Soft, tender, familiar. Her mother's voice drifted in the wind, calm and proud. The truth, once written in blood, became a story of strength. A daughter's voice, echoing where silence once lived. Amara smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, as she looked toward the glowing market sign. The legacy was complete.